Hey guys, it's Robin, and you're listening to the Live Life Balance podcast. My heart is full knowing that you're here today, prioritizing you and your wellness. This podcast is for women looking for an authentic, supportive community to learn about wellness from all angles, and who want to just feel their best. I'll be your guide, pointing you to ideas and tools that you can experiment with to find what works for you, because we all bring different experiences and knowledge to the table. No pun intended. Health is not a one-size-fits-all. By feeling our best, we're able to show up in our purpose, and that allows us to live the most joyful life, even in the most challenging times. Together, we're going to grow by learning to align ourselves and taking some simple, actionable steps that feel right for you. We're going to talk about self-care. We'll talk about nutrition, daily toxins. We'll talk food swaps. We'll definitely be talking about mindset and reframing our thoughts because it's so important. I hope that you leave today feeling more empowered and at ease. And I hope that you can take one or two small steps to be able to create the you that you want to be. Are you ready for all the possibilities? If you said yes, say, I am ready. Now let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to episode 2. This is Robin and it's hump day. Today you might have a hectic day. Maybe you have very little time, but I'm here cheering you on because you're showing up for yourself again. Whether you're driving, maybe you're at work, maybe you're walking or even sitting in car line, but I'm honored that you've chosen to tune in today and I'm so happy to be part of your day. One of the things I kind of wanted to go over with you guys is that when we talk about food in some of our episodes, you're going to start to hear things being repeated over and over from different aspects, because healthy eating really is just simply means eating whole, nourishing foods that are nutrient dense. And so whether you're talking about a disease or you're talking about an ailment that you have, when we talk from the food aspect, we're always going to be talking about what we can add in to make our bodies work a little better. Have you ever had like that blah feeling, maybe like a nervous stomach, or if you've eaten something and it just doesn't sit or make you feel very good? I'm back today because I wanted to talk a little bit about your gut, some of the feelings that you have, and food, and how they're all interconnected. Might sound complicated, but it's not. It's truly, for me, one of the aha moments that I had on my mom journey. I'm not here to be your doctor. I'm not going to give you a step-by-step plan. I'm just here to share what I've learned on my journey in hopes that you find something that works for you on yours. I am committed to be part of what I call the wellness ripple effect, and I invite you to join me so that together we can rise to be our best selves. Maybe some of you guys can relate to this. When you are a mom, and being a mom kind of brings out that what I call a mama bear lens to figure out things that are going on with your kids when they're not feeling their best. And for me, that was kind of like my go-to time. I'm going to get into that story a little bit later, but before we do, I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. So, have you ever heard the term gut? I'm sure most of you have at this point. I feel like it's kind of surfacing more and more these days. It's on the front of packages. You'll see, oh, this is good for your gut health, or, do this for your gut. And so maybe you know what that actually means, maybe you don't, but I find it super interesting that most of us know more about maybe our cars that we buy or the things that we have going on in our kids' lives than we do in our own body. And I think this is something that needs to change. We should know how our body works. And just like a car, if we just add gas and we never change the oil, eventually it's going to break down. Well, our bodies are very similar to a machine. If we just fill it with food and we're never really conscious about what types of food we're putting in, eventually, if we're not adding in those whole foods that are nutrient dense, our bodies will break down, and that will look like or could look like illness, or it could look like disease. And so I really think it's such an important topic to be talking about and to be educating on, because we all should know how our bodies work best. And again, that is from a bio-individual lens. So what works for one isn't going to work for everyone, but the more you learn, the more things you can try to find out what works best for you. Did you know that what we eat and how we eat influences our emotions, and that our emotions can influence what we eat and our eating habits? And that is called the food-mood connection. So I invite you, the next time you eat something, right, and you have that crash and you need a nap, what do you think is happening in your body to create that type of behavior? And so look at foods. Which foods give you the most energy? Which foods cause you to have happy feelings? Which foods kind of bring you down into a lower vibration? So again, just experimenting with different things to see what changes in your body, in your mood, because for everybody it's going to be different. We can talk about gut feelings. Have you ever had a gut feeling in your stomach, maybe before you did something, maybe some butterflies before you go up and you do a speech or a presentation of some sort? Or when you're stressed, do you ever feel your stomach contract and get super tight? Or sometimes you even get a weak stomach before you go on a roller coaster. Before the roller coaster even goes up to then take that huge dip, you're already feeling that sensation in your gut. And that is because our gut is a sensory organ. Yes, for sure, our gut houses bacteria and where food is broken down, but it also is where we process the world around us. And I think that is very foreign for a lot of people, although it's happening throughout our days, we're not really conscious of it. So again, I just want to invite you to start noticing how you feel when you're going into different situations and where those feelings are arising in your body, because I think you're going to be enlightened in what you find. There's also something called the gut-brain connection, and currently they call the gut your second brain, and that is because there is this gut-brain axis that goes between your gut and your brain. It's like a bi-directional communication between your central and your enteric nervous system. And basically what it does is it links your emotional and your cognitive centers of your brain with your intestinal functions. So what happens in your gut, just picture it like a roadway, those things contribute to what goes up into your brain and how things get processed in your brain, and then how things are processed in your brain then goes back down to where your stomach and your gut is. And so they're interconnected. So everything in our body, again, which I think is something that isn't talked about enough, is interconnected, where everything affects everything else. So if there's a roadblock along your axis that goes between your gut and your brain, that is probability for you having some health issues. The story that I wanted to tell you guys is that one of my daughters, around age 12 or 13, I kept seeing some signs where I thought maybe she was ADD or maybe ADHD. I really couldn't pinpoint it. And the more I researched, it said that it looked different in girls than it did boys. And so eventually, after kind of just observing, I reached out to the pediatrician and I said, I think there's a possibility that maybe she's got something like hyperactivity going on. I don't know exactly. And so they gave us this, forever long pages of stuff to fill out, and I did. And some of the stuff matched up, some of it didn't, but a lot of stuff kind of overlapped. So I really was still a little bit confused as to if that is what it actually was. And so our pediatrician is half holistic, half integrative, half Western medicine type situation. And so they said, before we make any kind of diagnosis, we would like to do a little bit of testing. Have you ever had a stool test done? And have you ever had a neurotransmitter test done? And I said, no, but we're definitely up for it. And so, of course, my nature, I start researching what these are and what we're going to find out. And wow, it was just so fascinating. what came out of just those two tests. And I think it showed us like this giant picture of things that we were so unaware of. And I learned that through the testing, we learned actually that she had gut dysbiosis. She had inflammation in her gut. And then there was a disruption in her neurotransmitters. And it wasn't serotonin. So that was interesting to me because I thought maybe that might be playing into it. So the gut dysbiosis came from something that was called a candida bacterial overgrowth. So her body was producing too many of these kinds of bacteria or yeasts because of the food that she was choosing to eat. And because of that, basically, as it overgrew her gut, it caused inflammation. So then she had an inflamed system, and that actually had her flared up with some eczema. It had her really craving sugar and craving carbs, which was so interesting to me. And then through all of that, it basically, showed that there was a disruption in some of her neurotransmitters, which I believe was dopamine and epinephrine. And so with a little bit of lifestyle tweaking, we did do a candida eradication, which was a diet with a couple of supplements to kill them and then eradicate them out, and then a few supplements to balance out her neurotransmitters. And within a month's time, her behaviors had changed so much and so significantly that we all noticed it within our family. She was less impulsive. She was able to hold her tongue and listen to a conversation and not be so feisty. And to me, it was just such an aha moment about how our whole body is interconnected. And you might be saying, well, what in the world is gut bacteria and what does it do for us, right? So gut bacteria actually regulates hormones. It eliminates toxins from our body. It helps to create natural antibiotics, so it boosts our immune system so that we don't get sick as often. And gut bacteria also can help control obesity, diabetes, and like I said, improves, the immune function. So not that everybody has this, but if you have any health issues, chances are there's some kind of dysbiosis going on in your gut. It might not be candida. It could just be inflammation. It could not be any of it. But what's interesting is there are ways to get those tested so that you can see a bigger picture. Now, without getting tested, there are some basic food habits that will increase your gut health or your microbiome. So the object is to kind of have a balance between good commensal bacteria and bad bacteria. If you have an overgrowth in either, it kind of throws your gut off. So some of the simple things that we're going to talk about today, which you might have heard in another podcast or from other people, is in order to have good gut health, you need to not have some of the not so friendly gut bacteria foods. And so that would include things like highly processed foods, things that are high in saturated fat or trans fat. So you're looking to avoid as much as possible those things. Having foods and drinks that are high in added sugar. So there's a difference between added sugar and whole sugar. And so when you're looking at a food label on the back, you will see it's now FDA has broken it out to where you see a total number of sugars, and then underneath you will see added sugars. And we're really focused on the added sugars because whole sugar can come from dates, it can come from honey, it can come from other things that are natural. And then the added sugars would be things like cane sugar, regular table sugar, things that are not whole, and so therefore they're more inflammatory to your gut. Also, if you have a large amount of sugar being added, it can lead to that overgrowth of the fungus or bacteria that's called candida, which is what happened to my daughter. Eliminating food additives and emulsifiers because those cause intestinal inflammation. Artificial sweeteners, we really want to ditch those. They've been marketed as, oh, here, this is sweet, but it has no sugar added. And so with that, I will say, yes, that is true, but that is a chemical-based sugar which causes inflammation in your body and negatively can affect your blood sugar levels. But, we're going to get rid of all of this stuff. So what are we going to do? Well, next we're going to add in some gut-friendly foods. We're going to eat a variety of colorful vegetables and fruits because those actually are super healthy. They provide us with antioxidants, minerals, fiber. Fiber is amazing. And they support a gut bacteria diversity. And so eating a plethora of different vegetables and fruits really helps to add good bacterias and fiber into our gut to make it as healthy as possible. We're going to also add in whole unrefined grains because that helps, again, to promote regular bowel movements. It also is beneficial for our gut flora health. And so, just making these few tweaks of eliminating and adding in can really do the body good. The next thing we want to add in is healthy, high quality protein. That means that your protein is coming from being grass-fed, organic, non-GMO. If your body can handle dairy, you want that to also be organic and with little to no fillers if possible. And then, of course, we're always going to talk about hydration because hydration is so important for our body. And hydration is not just from drinking water. Hydration comes from ramping up our mineral intake also. So when you are drinking water and you're not eating fruits and vegetables, you're doing a disservice. So you want to kind of have both. You want to make sure that you're drinking enough water throughout the day, but you want to also make sure that you're having enough fruits and vegetables that provide those minerals so that the water is more absorbed into your body. The next pillar we're going to talk about is food preparation. So there's talk about raw versus cooked, and this is something that will be bio-individual. This will be up to you. And so this has to do with experimentation. Now, it is said that eating cooked, warmed foods is easier to digest and easier on the gut to tolerate, but again, doesn't mean that you can just be one way or the other. A lot of people can do both, but if your gut is sensitive or if it is in a position that needs to be rebuilt, normally cooked, warmed foods is just a little bit easier and gentler on your gut. Steaming food, baking food, those are two really healthy options when it comes to increasing like a higher nutrient profile of the food. You don't lose as many minerals, you don't lose the vitamins. So when you're thinking about your cooking methods, how often do you steam something? How often do you bake something? Are you always frying it? Now the air fryer is amazing, but think of kind of changing it up a little bit throughout the day, throughout your week. Make different choices when you're cooking your food so that you get a variety of nutrient values. The next pillar we're going to talk about is food quality. So when we talk about the quality of our food, yes, that absolutely matters. It matters because whole foods are going to be better than processed foods. When we talk about ingredients, if you are eating something that is in a box or a bag, a rule of thumb, try to eat it something that has 5 ingredients or less. I like to say between 5 and 9 real ingredients are okay. But when you have a list of 25 things on the back of a box or on a bag, you really need to investigate and see what all of that is before just ingesting it, because it can do a disservice to your gut. Look for those hidden ingredients. Look for things like hormones that have been added or antibiotics or pesticides. So the quality of our food does matter. If you've never heard of this, there's something called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. And those are something that every year comes out, and it is explains to you which foods are the cleanest as far as not having a bunch of pesticides sprayed on them, and then which ones are the dirtiest. And so the ones that are on the dirty dozen, you want to make sure to have those organic. If you can't have everything organic, those are the ones that you particularly want to make sure are organic. And then the clean 15, if you can get it organic, great. If you can't, that's okay too, because those have the least amount of herbicides and pesticides that are sprayed on them, on their crops. The last thing that we're going to talk about is our eating practices. And so some of you might be saying, well, what's an eating practice? So an eating practice is basically, how do you consume your food? What are you doing? Are you sitting down and having a nice peaceful dinner? Are you on the go? Are you eating standing? Are you going through a drive-through and eating in your car? Life is not perfect, so you're probably going to have a balance of all of those. But again, it's just being mindful. How many times do you sit down and have a peaceful dinner, or a dinner where there's no TV on and there's just conversation happening? That is super important, because how we eat in that kind of a condition kind of signals our body to be able to digest it a little bit better. And we'll get into that in just a second. The other thing is, how mindful are you? Are you using your 5 senses when you sit down to eat, or even if you're standing? Do you take a look at your food? Do you have a colorful plate of foods? What does it smell like? If you take a minute and just close your eyes and breathe in, and that signals your body that there is good, healthy, nutritious food coming just by smelling it. When you go to take a bite, really taste your food. What does it taste like? How does it feel in your mouth? These are all, like, using your 5 senses and mindfulness while eating really creates a better atmosphere for your body to be able to absorb and digest and take that food in to its highest level. Proper chewing. How many times do you chew your meal or your bite? How many times do you just inhale and swallow? Again, chewing is your first part of digestion. So you want to make sure that you really are thinking about all the ways in which you chew or don't chew. And when we were talking about having like a stress-free, calming environment, the reason that that's important is because when our body is in a stressful state, that is called the sympathetic nervous system that is having a reaction, and that we call that the fight, flight, or freeze stage. And so when that happens and we're in that state, our digestion takes a back seat. It slows down. The flow of food gets slower, and therefore the digestion process is slower. And so that's really not a healthy way to be eating. And that whole thing talks about, like, if a bear is chasing you. So if you're hungry and all of a sudden you're being chased by something, and that sympathetic nervous system kicks in, you're not going to be hungry anymore, because everything slows down so that you can run for your life. Well, we don't need to run from our life every day, right? We need to shift ourselves over to what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, which is known as the rest and digest. And so if we can come to the table, come to a meal, whether it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, breakfast and dinner, 1 or more meals per day, if we can come in that state, we are really giving our bodies what it needs to digest and use food appropriately for our wellness and health. So when we are in that rest and digest, our digestive system can actually work. The saliva glands can release saliva so that it can coat your food, which again is the beginning process of your digestive tract. So with all that being said, one of the things I wanted you to think about was how you feel different. So when you have that crazy day and you're just trying to get to the end of the day and you rush in, and even if someone's made you that dinner and you're not really present and you're sitting down and you're shoveling that food in just to be full, just to move on to the next thing, how do you actually feel? What are the feelings that come up? How is your food, being digested? And then I want you to then think about a time maybe when you're out with your friends or family and you're at a dinner and you guys are sitting down and you're more in a relaxed state and you're ordering food, but you're having conversation and you're laughing. And that is truly how it is been set up so that we can sit and have those relationship times while we're eating. And that also brings us into that parasympathetic. So how do you feel during that time versus when you're in a rush? And again, this is all about just coming from an outer lens, looking in. Where do you feel better? Do you feel better during those rushed times, or do you feel better during the times when you actually have a moment to breathe and laugh and have fun and enjoy and talk about the food? So leaving you today, I know we talked about a lot, so I just want to recap. Number 1, gut feeling food connections. Number 2, checking in with your gut feelings. Number 3, join the wellness ripple effect by loving yourself enough to focus on the foods you intake. Number 4, think of your gut-brain connection like a roadway system. Number 5, gut bacteria. They're good for your hormones, eliminating toxins, creating natural antibiotics, helping to curb obesity, diabetes, and increase your immune system. Number 6, we talked about ditching the not-so-friendly gut foods. Number 7, we talked about adding in gut-friendly foods. Number 8, we talked about preparing our foods, raw versus cooked, healthier ways of cooking. Number 9, we talked about the quality of our food being very important. Number 10, we talked about our eating practices, eating mindfully, bringing out a calmer state when we sit down to eat, chewing properly. And the last but not least, making sure that we try to invite ourselves into a more parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, versus being in the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. I loved being here with you today. I hope that you got something from today's mini episode. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. Drop a comment below, and if you feel led to, download this episode and share it with someone that you love that needs to hear this message. To stay connected, check out my Instagram and Facebook pages at Live Life Balanced with Robin. Join my newsletter, my blog, or even opt in for my free junk food cleanse sheet at my website, which is www.livelifebalancedwithrobin. And if you're looking to work one-on-one with someone on your health journey, check out my services page on my website too. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. It truly means a lot that you are allowing me to be on your wellness journey with you. Until next time, find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to happen.